Hello. Very excited on today, Tuesday, November 3rd, to be live for the Are You Green podcast. The Are You Green podcast can be listened to across all platforms, Apple, Spotify, wherever you listen to your podcast. However, I always thought it would be really great to do the podcast live since it is, something that is very news driven, and the markets are constantly changing, which makes the stock market very exciting. And just to be able to do the podcast live is a really good first step. So this is my first time doing this. So please feel free to say something in the chat if something is wrong, because I literally have no idea what I'm doing. But I'm going to just, go ahead and record my podcast like I do every day. So here we go. Hello, traders and friends. Thank you for joining me today on Tuesday, November 3rd, Election Day 2020. Today has already been very exciting since I woke up, and the market has, been just going through a big rally. We'll talk about a little later on the show why the market has been rallying today. But for now, we'll go over the markets in the overview here. We've got the SPY, SPY. I always follow the SPY and see if it's going to be green or red for the day. The SPY opened at 333.70, and it hasn't closed yet, but last time I looked, it was up over a few percentage points. So there's definitely been that big rally happening with the SPY. Let's see what it is at right now. It's currently at 335.98. So 1.75% up for the day. Is the SPY green? Yes, it is, as we always like to talk about. XLK, the technology sector. I love watching this ticker. It's a really great snapshot of what's happening across the technology sector. The stock opens today at 112. It's now at 112.97. And yes, it is green for the day. So that is very exciting, since we are seeing the entire market boost across the board. All sectors that are in the S&P 500 are actually up right now. So this is definitely a across the board rally. It's not just the tech stocks bumping up. In fact, you saw, that XLK isn't even doing that great. It's really across all sectors. And in just a few moments, we'll talk about the news that's making that happen. So we've got news around China suspending the Ant Group. We've got news about the Dow. We have news about the election, of course, since it's election day, looking at the speculation of each candidate and what's going to happen with the market. And the last thing we want to touch on is going to be the news around Powell with the Federal Reserve. And of course, we'll talk about my personal trades. I did buy today, even in this crazy market, and I even had a day trade today. I have to be careful of those because of the pattern day trader rules. So when I get to go ahead and make one, it's very exciting. So we'll talk about that. And then we will also talk about the ATVI and what to expect tonight. So stay tuned. So now I stop the podcast. For those of you interested in podcasting, I would say that Anchor has been amazing. It is such an easy podcast tool. So I do each segment and I add a little bit of music to the segment. I click save. I, call this segment of the podcast is obviously just the intro about the day. And then I go ahead and add it to the episode. And then I can go ahead and record the very next segment. Oh my gosh. And because I'm live, I totally forgot something. So we'll talk about it in the next segment. Diving right into the news, we have the hottest news topic, which is China. China suspended the Ant Group IPO. For those of you that don't really, understand as much, basically, a stock has is an IPO when they first join the market, and it's very exciting, for a stock to be publicly traded. Before, it's a big move for the company. Prior to this, prior to being public, the company is privately held by investors, and they also don't have to report a lot of the financials to the public. Becoming, publicly traded does, come with more transparency, and then it, is also a huge fundraising drive, for the company. So we were all anticipating Ant Group to, be publicly traded by now. However, China has suspended this. This, is just kind of going into the volatility with the Chinese stocks. I do like to swing trade the Chinese stocks, JD, Alibaba, Billy, those does have it. Obviously the government suspended this. And we have no idea what's going to happen next. So that's, again, why it's been on the news. The other big thing everyone is talking about is the market rally. The Dow is up higher than it's been in a long time. The Dow in general is having the best day since June. So there's definitely a huge rally in the market going on. Around the election, we'll talk about that for a moment. As you guys know, on the podcast, I try not to talk about politics because the market is really my focus, and so I try not to get too political. However, there have been a lot of talks today with speculating a Biden win, and perhaps that's what has been, giving the market this big push today. We don't know, but what I did think was really interesting is looking at a few different stocks and sectors that they're anticipating will grow under Biden. So those are clean energy, solar energy, and electric, and then also the healthcare stocks. Thermo Fisher is at an all-time high today, and healthcare services, they're expecting that to thrive. However, under a Trump win, they are expecting, in general, corporations to do very well because of those tax cuts, and maybe we would see a little bit of pullback on corporations, if Biden were to win, because again, they would be responsible for more taxes. That being said, I have read and researched a lot of investors and analysts, and basically, what it comes down to is that for the short term, when I'm a short-term investor, because I do swing trades and day trades, it doesn't really matter. The volatility is going to be there regardless. And what is actually going to make a huge impact, a real sustainable impact, is a stimulus. And people are predicting that is still coming in February at the latest, regardless of who wins the election. They, are talking about how important the Federal Reserve is to the economy, and that Powell will be keeping interest rates low regardless of the outcome. There will be a stimulus that will come through. So with those two things combined, people are feeling very bullish about the market, and feeling like it will, continue to go up no matter who is president. So I do like, the fact that these analysts are telling people not to panic. I say that like almost every time on the podcast: do not panic sell, because it can be so easy for you to see a huge drop and then want to sell. But basically, analysts are saying even if there's crazy volatility after the elections, or even tonight and tomorrow, just stay strong on your investments because the market will recover. So I really like that. Now, to get a little personal, we'll take a break on the podcast and continue shortly. So what I realized that I didn't say on the podcast is my favorite question: are you green? Where at the top of the podcast, I usually talk about my personal account, just to give it an overview if I'm, green or red. But I'll go ahead and add that to this segment coming up. So for those of you watching live, I really appreciate your patience since this is the first time I'm recording and being live at the same time. So let's go into my personal trades. Okay, let's get personal. So I did forget my main question at the top of this podcast. Are you green? On my personal account, we know the XLK is green, the SPY is green for the day. But yes, my account is green for the day. Obviously, I am still in a lot of swing trades and I'm still holding them, waiting for the levels I want. But it is great to see that my account is green today. I also had a couple of really good trades today that I will talk about now. So the first thing was PayPal. I have been talking on the podcast for the last few days about PayPal, watching it drop, wanting it to get to a certain level where I thought it would bounce based on the pivot points. So having a pivot strategy, I think, is something that works really well for me personally. Basically, it just gives me these outlines of levels that the stock has been pivoting around, and it honestly does predict, bounces all the time. And I like to kind of reverse it. So I want, to see where everyone else is going, and then plan a target buy where that pivot is, where I think the bottom of that sell off will be. Buy there. Once it bounces, sell there. So that being said, I've been watching PayPal. I did go ahead and buy it today. I bought it for $175.55. The painful thing about this trade for me is that I did only such a small size because of the uncertainty around the election. And, I do feel like that kind of regret because this trade went really well for me. I ended up putting in a sell at 184.92. Not even sure if it would get there today, and it did. So that's a 9.37 point gain. So that's a really big gain for me. Even as a swing trader, 3 points is really great. That's usually, what I shoot for. So having a 9-point gain was huge. And, I just am disappointed that I didn't size in more on this trade. And that kind of goes back to the trading psychology that I've been, talking to you guys about. You cannot, feel this like fear that you're missing out. And you cannot feel, any type of bad regret if you missed a trade, because there are going to be more and more and more trades. So yes, I'm happy that I, did get a big gain on that, even though I went in small size. It also just better reaffirms me to trust my, my system, because, that's really what I'm building towards, is just this consistency with this pivot system. So that was the PayPal trade. I made a trade this morning as well, that I made a buy this morning on a different ticker, and I feel like this is a good lesson to share with you guys. The ticker is MOS, it's Mosaic. And I do feel a little, disappointed that I took this. I took the trade because, a trader that I follow had called this out as, possibly a good trade. And, I did have that fear of missing out because I know, that the market, I wasn't sure what the market was going to give me today. So, I did feel that, and I didn't want to miss out on a good buy. So I bought MOS and my average was 17.14. It had a huge drop right off the open. So, I was looking for like that big bump so I could sell it at like 17.80. Unfortunately, that bounce, was very small compared to what I was wanting. And the trade immediately, I was aware that it wasn't going my way. I did at that point think, do I want to break out even, or even, lose a little bit on this trade? But I went ahead and, decided that I'm going to stick and swing this trade. I sold off a small part for 17.25, like for like 10-cent gain, just so that I'm still at a really small size on this. But it's just really frustrating that on a trade where I was following somebody else's advice, I sized in accordingly. it's also kind of a cheap stock, like 17 bucks. But on a trade where I had my own plan with PayPal, I sized in very small. So this is just like another lesson to me as a trader where I need to really trust my instincts, and on the ones that I plan, I should be sizing in on those trades because obviously I've been doing really well. So anyways, it's just a kind of note for all of you guys out there to trust yourselves, have your own plans. If an expert trader says buy, don't necessarily just buy, like really look into the stock. So that's the details on that. The last stock that I had some personal movement with today was ATVI. I had bought that stock on the podcast. You guys remember during earnings, I was really excited. My average was 74.20. And originally I was going to wait until it got up to like 78, 79. But with the election tonight, I saw that it had a big jump this morning, and I just thought I'm just gonna take my profit. And that's something that you should never be afraid to do as a trader. Don't be greedy. Take your profit, and no one is gonna say that was a bad idea making money. So I did take my profit. I sold at an average of 76.74, so it was a 2.54 net point gain, which is decent for me. Like I mentioned, I like to get a 3-point gain on a swing. But in this volatility with the election coming up, like that was, definitely the best that I could do. And, I have been trying to lighten up my, what I'm holding because I know that there might be some big volatility starting tonight. So that is the wrap up of my personal trades. I'm really excited to be green right now. And when we come back in just a moment, I'm going to address what to look for tonight during the election and what we can expect for tomorrow. Okay, great. So I've stopped that segment. Just going to add a little bit of music to it and then save, and then we'll talk about tomorrow. And yeah, I see I have like 1 or 2 people hopping in on this stream, and it's really exciting. So feel free to like say something in the chat. I'm not even sure if that works. So yeah, maybe I'll just type in like hello. Anyways, okay. So we'll go ahead and save this segment as personal trades. And we're on to the last segment of my podcast, with Are You Green, which looks at the next day. And for today, it'll look at tonight. So let's go ahead and do that. So I'm going to start recording that. We are getting ready for a very exciting night with the elections. I know that there's a lot of anxiety around the country. And for those of you who are trading, I would just, really suggest that you look at the charts, what the data is giving you, and hold true to your trading plan. Do not panic sell. As I say all the time, do not panic sell, especially with whatever is going to happen tonight. I will tell you, though, that I am going to be looking at the market tonight as I watch the election results. What I'm going to be looking for that I wanted to share is going to be overly dramatic and emotional moves. So really big moves, over like 8%, 5% move after hours, something like that, so that I can really take advantage of, these people who might be selling just based on emotions. So we'll see. I think anyone who tries to predict what's going to happen tonight is missing the point. I'm not really going to predict anything. What I do know for sure is that I'm going to be watching the market and reacting to the market with my same strategy, looking at where there's a big move. There needs to be volume in the stock as well. And then, lastly, just, making sure that I'm not hitting, any all-time highs or all-time lows with the stock, and looking back to see how the stock performed in the past 180 days. I like using that metric on my charting to see, has it hit that level and where did it bounce back? So, from just looking at the data standpoint for tonight, I'm not going to be, as a trader, I'm not going to be focused on the election results for the candidates. I'm going to be more focused on what is happening in the market as a trainer. As a trader, obviously, personally, I'll have my own stuff going on, but I just don't want to miss good opportunities in the market. And that brings us to tomorrow. Tomorrow is very exciting because there's just so much unknown, and there's a lot of positivity that has come out today because of this big market rally. Major averages are higher today for the second day in a row, and S&P's up, Dow's up, Nasdaq's up. So just tomorrow, I would just say, again, watch those gappers that have been in like after the market or before the market, watch those big, huge price movements. And just go after those that have data protecting your decisions. So you should be able to point to a historical moment in the past where the stock has made this type of move, and feel confident in your trades. I am also going to be very careful about managing risk tonight. I'm going to be making sure that I, don't hold too much. Since I am already holding a lot of swing trades. That being said, lastly, I just want to announce the podcast. I am going to be recording live on YouTube on the days Tuesday, Wednesday, and Friday. So Tuesday, Wednesday, Friday, watch on YouTube for the Are You Green podcast live. I'm still very new at this live thing. I'm doing it right now and struggling. So I appreciate you guys for watching it live. I just figure it helps because, I want to have this out by the end of the bell, and sometimes it gets it pushed a little later and later, and since trade news is so important to pay attention to as it's happening, I think that going live on YouTube is going to be a really great asset for people who don't want to wait a couple hours to listen to the podcast. So thank you guys so much for listening. Please be sure to continue to follow me wherever you hear this podcast. And for my YouTube channel is called Trading Goals Now with Elisa Levinson. I might change that to better reflect the podcast, but I am really excited to continue to grow this podcast, share with you the most accurate and up-to-date news, exciting levels in the New York Stock Exchange, and my personal trades. So stay safe tonight, and I'll see you guys tomorrow. Okay, great. So that's it. Thank you so much for watching this. I'll, of course, be posting it. This is my first one, so I'm really hoping they're going to get a lot better in the future. But again, thanks for watching. And if you want to listen to the Are You Green podcast, this episode should be up in like 20 to 30 minutes. It takes a while to post them. That's why I'm like trying to figure out how to do this live. And then you can also go on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, wherever you listen to your podcast, to listen to some of the previous episodes if you want to get some background there. So thanks, you guys. Have a great day. Stay safe tonight for election. And I will see you tomorrow for the live stream. I'm going to try to start them around 12 o'clock Pacific Standard Time every day. So see you soon. Bye.